Welcome to Stay Sparked. On this show, we explore how to stay inspired in the modern world through the most profound lessons from Burning Man, relationships, entrepreneurship, psychedelics, spirituality, travel, and more.
On today's episode, we talked about nature and how important it is to get into the world, the way it can affect our perceptions of ourself and the world around us.
We talk about the ways that nature can nurture us and teach us valuable lessons on life.
Also, the differences in what we can get out of various parts of the world, like what we get from the desert and the mountains and the oceans, and how if we can't get to these places, how we can get little doses of nature right here in the city. Enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to Stay Sparked. We are three longtime friends who have been inspiring each other for over a decade, and we are here to share conversations aimed to inspire you and light you up. Thank you so much for listening. If you have been enjoying our conversations, we really appreciate you leaving a rating and a review on Apple Podcast, and please help us spread the sparks. Like Becca, thank you so much for your review saying, great pod by great people about great topics. Keep up the good work, guys. Blessed be and burn on. Amazing. Thanks, Becca. I'm Betsy.
I'm Halcyon.
And I'm Janus.
I am the founder of the Power Affirmation Project that teaches life skills for sustainable happiness, and I am a holistic healing arts practitioner here in Southern California, spreading sparks of joy and healing energy.
I am a lifestyle artist and love ambassador, sharing my journey on the Hug Nation YouTube channel.
And I'm the founder and CEO of New World Nutritionals, a nutritional supplement company with products designed to improve your state of mind.
We always love starting our conversations with gratitude. So, Janus, what are you grateful for this morning?
What I'm grateful for this morning is that for the last 5 days, I've been on this optimized morning plan that involves waking up and immediately getting electrolytes, and then immediately going outside and walking, getting some sunlight in my eyes and on my skin, coming back, taking a cold shower, and then starting my day at that point. And really, it's what it's done for me. It's like I've had so many friends be like, this is the best way to start my morning. And I've been doing it, and I gotta say, it is pretty fantastic. I'm kind of feeling like Superman, like around, by the time I get back and out of the shower. I'm a daily coffee drinker, but my coffee intake has probably been reduced by like 90%. I just don't feel like I want coffee after the shower, after I get out of the cold shower, because it's cold and then it's warm to actually get clean. And then you have to finish cold. That's the important thing. And so I come out of that and I'm just like, I realize that as much as I enjoy coffee, I drink it as much out of habit as desire. And then when that desire is out, it's almost like I feel the habitness of it. And I'm like, maybe I don't want that. Oh, I guess I don't. And then I would go without it and have a fantastic, energized day, like all day. So I'm grateful for my new morning routine. It's working out fantastic. I wish it started sooner, but it's never too late to start.
Woo, amazing. Yes. Yeah. I feel your buzz, your morning ritual buzz.
Indeed.
No coffee needed. Yeah. Amazing. Well, that's so funny because my gratitude is actually for my morning drink, which sometimes has coffee and sometimes has a base of tea. My just recipe changes a little bit every few months, but currently I love putting mushroom powder in my drink, and collagen, and I put bacopa powder, and I put sometimes I put agave, put a little bit of MCT powder, and all kinds of other wonderful superfoods, and it is just like so yummy and nourishing, and it gets my brain going, and it helps me feel really good about having my morning drink because it's immunity boosting as well. And so I'm grateful for my morning drink.
Nice. We need to have a Stay Sparked cookbook soon. I want my gratitude this week is for skiing. I had a chance to return to the snow and ski after a 30-year break. And there was a bunch of mental obstacles I had about why I couldn't or wasn't able to return. And so returning as a grown man, and experiencing the experience of being sliding across the earth, just in this being of grace through snow, as opposed to my younger experience of like shredding and trying to be cool and trying to like hot dog. It was just such a beautiful growth awareness for me to experience this present moment in nature, as opposed to the way that I was in the world as a youth. So I'm grateful for skiing for helping me to experience that.
I love that. Yes, that's so beautiful to be able to glide across the earth. Well, I'm so grateful to hear that too, because we actually are deciding to share our conversation today about the earth and about nature and how nature nurtures us. Halcyon just came back, as he said. I also just came back from some nature time myself. And so we're feeling some sparks around why we go into nature and what it does for us. So love to start our conversation off around a question. So I think one of the things that's really alive right now is, what does it feel like when we don't have ample time in nature, right? So I'd love to kind of just get curious with you guys. Have you guys have had that experience where maybe you've been deprived of nature and you've noticed some different things? So either of you want to share to start us off?
I will start that off because I'm in the category right now of not having been in nature for some time, and I'm definitely missing it a little bit. I know that you two have been enjoying yourselves out there, and I've certainly had my moments of being in nature and seeing the results, and then bringing that back to the daily day-to-day world, like usually living in a city or a big city and such. And I'm currently at a point now where I'm feeling that need and that necessity to get back out in the trees. For me, it's, as much as I love the ocean, I like to live by the ocean, but I like to go to the woods or the mountains or the desert. That's the nature, that's the type of nature that really rejuvenates me and allows me to kind of reset. And as much as what's for me, like, as much as what's going on out there, like when you go to the mountains, there's just trees and nature and animals and such, or the desert is a place that I've also really come to appreciate what it has to offer. But as much as what's going on out there, it feels to me like it's a blank slate. Like I'm bringing like myself to there with no preconceived notions as to what what's how do I say this, how like as what is happening out there. It just provides me a chance to kind of draw a blank canvas for me to work out my stuff on or work out my stuff with, and allows me to think and feel and process without a lot of sensory input, Wi-Fi signals, people, sirens, the city, the day-to-day city life. Getting away from that is, it's as important for me to get away from the stuff as it is to get to the other stuff.
Mm.
And so I get a lot out of that, and it allows me to kind of come back to my day-to-day life with a much like refreshed, re-energized kind of sense. There's a very ceremonial aspect to my experience with nature that is important and necessary to get into.
Nice. Yeah.
For me.
I feel like I sometimes am not aware of my need for nature until I'm in it. Like my baseline just shifts so that I think that it's normal. Like if you ever clean your sunglasses and go, whoa, oh my gosh, they've been so smudged and dirty. And that's how I feel like when I get into nature center, I'm like, oh wow, I have been just in a congested state of my being that needed to be cleansed. I'm going to share a John Muir quote, and I have a bunch of them written down because I was just in the Sierras, and there's just quotes of his all over the place. So there's one that says, "Keep close to nature's heart and break clear once in a while, and climb a mountain or spend a week in the woods. Wash your spirit clean." And that's how I feel. Oh my gosh, I didn't even know I was dirty. But when I'm in nature, and there's some things specifically for me that are like that absolutely reset me, and in it, like submerging in the ocean and feeling the pounding of a waterfall, even like a tiny waterfall on me. Like those two things are like zoom. There's nothing like it for me. Like that is me. My soul is clean after that.
All those negative ions,
Yeah.
right? Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, so rejuvenating. I love that so much too because yeah, we don't always realize that we need it until we go into it. I personally have found myself getting sort of angsty or a little like easily agitated, and like usually when I check in, if I'm not feeling my best self, that's usually what I need, is whether it's like go down to the beach or go on a hike or, just go sit and breathe with some trees. It really does make such a big difference to be able to kind of like unplug in a way, but also plug in, right? Or I also like to kind of, it feels like closing tabs, right? When you're like running around and doing so much and tracking this and schedules with that and making sure I'm here and making sure I do that and da 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 da, monkey mind, monkey mind, monkey mind. Then I get into nature and it's like, oh, flowers. Oh, birds. Oh, clouds. Oh, that's all that really matters right now. Oh, okay, just keep watching the waves and just it just brings me into such a deep place of presence. And like you said, Janus, then when I come back into my doing life and the tending of things, then I have so much more clarity and I feel so much more centered and so much more grounded.
Yeah, yeah, and so and that clarity is like the key element that I think we're kind of all talking about. What you guys have both referred to is that idea of like we start to assume that the that our day-to-day life is like our normal baseline, and like we're not seeing through you know a clear lens, so to speak. So so the nature is a way of like cleaning off your lens,
Mm,
and the idea that you don't realize that you're carrying a weight until you take it off, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I feel so much lighter.
mhm,
Nature does that for you, so it's important for me to really have a you know almost like a schedule, to be like, to not just do it until I feel like I have to, like it's imperative, like you don't want to wait too long to do it. So it's important to kind of almost like schedule that into your calendar at some point and just be like, no, regardless of what, I'm just going to schedule some nature time, and then just getting out there and feeling like it's almost like using nature as like a preventative as opposed to like a cure for something. Like
mhm,
I'm getting to the point now where I'm like, I kind of need to go out in nature. It's like I feel like I've definitely put it off too long.
mhm.
So approaching it as a um what's the word I'm looking for? Just just a
A
modality,
vitamin.
a vitamin. Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like a
Yeah.
nutrient that I
Yeah.
need to take once a month
Totally.
or every few weeks or so. Yeah,
It sounds like, Jonas, you might need to start putting some nature on your calendar more regularly.
yeah.
Because
It's
you're
and
getting to that point where it's maybe fallen off a little bit. And I think it happens to all of us.
yeah.
Right? Little reminders to like, yeah, the sips of nature, whether
Hmm.
that's a hike or just a little bits out in nature to help to, yeah, bring that sense of
Yeah.
ease in life.
And then speaking of scheduling, it's interesting that one of the things that I is so energizing or clarifying for me is when I look out over the ocean or into a forest, and I have the sense that what I'm witnessing is has the patterns and the cycles that I'm witnessing have been going on so long. You know, there's been animals chasing animals, things growing, dying, decaying, and that the drama of my life is so minute compared to this pattern that has been going on and is perfectly balanced, and so suddenly all the stress that I have in my little one unique human life, like everything on my calendar is suddenly like statistically invisible, irrelevant, nothing. And so it's like, I just find that just takes all of my tension and goes whew.
Hmm.
Yes, absolutely. We're a tiny little speck in all of it, all of it. Yeah, the first time I went snorkeling, I was in this beautiful place in Fiji, and I went under the water and I saw this whole world under there, and it was like, oh, oh wow, okay, yes, I really don't I mean, I'm part of this whole, but also like there's a lot more going on than my own little tiny little world here. It just made me feel so tiny in comparison to this beautiful grand orchestra of nature and all of her creatures. It's just puts things in perspective.
Yeah, and that perspective check or perspective shift is it's vital. It's vital to our well-being, both physically and emotionally, spiritually as well, if we're going to get esoteric about it. So it's, for me, it helps to have that perspective check. But there have been times where there was a time of my life where I was very aware on a daily basis, like how tiny I am, and how not insignificant, but how there's so much more going on than my little world. So I'm just going to be part of the whole infinite kind of thing. Um, and it's tough to operate in this world from that perspective 24/7. I tried it and found myself living in a van down by the river. And so it doesn't necessarily, it's good to dive into that while also having, get what you need out of it. And if you need to live in a van down by the river, that's a lot of people's dream right now.
Right.
I'm not hating on that by all means. But there's a way for me to dive into it, get what I need out of it, and then I'm able to come back to what I'm trying to do in, day-to-day life with a renewed energy, renewed perspective, and
Mm-hmm.
a new, a bit of more energy to get done what I want to get done.
Absolutely.
You
There's
know,
so many lessons that nature teaches too, right? When we're talking about perspective, I know for me, I always find so much insight when I look at the patterns of nature and the way that certain plants grow and the way that certain animals do things. There's so much wisdom. Like an example that I always come back to is the butterfly, the caterpillar's metamorphosis into the chrysalis and into the butterfly, and how it teaches this really beautiful journey of our own transformation, right? We go in these different stages and cycles of life where the caterpillar is, consuming and taking in and eating and filling itself up. And it gets to a certain point where it knows it's ready to go inward on a very deep level and allow itself to transform. And that teaches this level of surrendering to the unknown. It teaches a level of patience as well. And then to be able to witness what the butterfly then represents, right? It's a pollinating, it's a stage of life where there is this much more expression. And it's taught me so much to like, I don't have to be outward and expressing myself all the time. I can, sometimes go inward and let myself be in the chrysalis phase. And sometimes I, you know, get to move through these different layers of metamorphosis in short periods of time or long, more extended periods of time. So I feel like the animals and the totems and the symbology and the spiritual part of nature is always just fueling so much inspiration for me.
Oh,
and it's
nice.
great that we live in a time where we have access to information and technology. So it'd be great to be able to witness the full cycle of a caterpillar into a butterfly and to research it and to understand what's happening during all those phases. But we have access to brilliant scientists and biologists that have shared so much that we can learn about things. And like I feel like watching David Attenborough nature documentaries is more powerful than reading a spiritual text. As you get to witness these animals and their patterns and their cycles. There's so much to be learned. I want to give a plug. There's a new thing on Netflix, Chimp Empire, by the guy who did My Octopus Teacher, that is
Mm.
such a beautiful look at the personalities and the interactions of beautiful animals that are not humans. And I think the more that we can understand that the division between the human animal that we are and all the animals, the more that we can feel in connection. And I think that's also a part of cleansing, of letting go of so much of the false importance of our societal stuff. And again, at the same that you said, Janusz, like you got to have a balance. It can't be all nature and all uh, the worldly world. It's getting your nutrients of nature enough so that you can be healthy in both worlds, hopefully.
Mm. Yeah, and I think a lot of people maybe listening to this have seen my octopus teacher. It was fantastic. If you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend looking it out. So I'm definitely interested in checking out Chimp Empire, if it's by the same people. So because octopus teacher was really kind of somewhat profound for me to watch that. So a question I wanted to ask you guys in regards to getting out in nature, what, if anything, we've all spent a significant amount of time in the desert, for example, as well. Our nature experience has varied a lot. Been tropical, mountains, desert. What is, for example, what do you guys get from the desert that you don't get from the mountains or the ocean, for example? I mean, I'm interested to hear from you guys. What's different from you guys in different environments? What do you got, Betsy?
Yes, I'm like lighting up in that question because I love the desert. I grew up very far away from the desert in Ohio, and I had this idea of what the desert was based on what I saw in movies. And then I moved from Ohio to Arizona, which is desert. And it radically shifted my idea of what the desert was actually like, in a way that was so beautiful and illuminating, because my idea of what it was just like dry, desert, barren, no life. And then when I got to the Arizona desert, I saw the most beautiful life there, that is so resilient and so strong and so just dynamic. And one of the things that I really enjoy about being in the desert is that there is this very apparent cycle of life and death, everywhere you look. Joshua Tree is another one of my favorite places to visit the desert. We're here in San Diego, so it's not too far of a drive. And when you're walking around out there, you see dead tree just going right back down into the earth, and then like just not too far away, there's another one growing. And it's just so incredible to be able to recognize that how we are in this constant state of death and rebirth. And the desert really shows us that. And it's like, oh, wow, okay, like I'm going back to the earth and then birthing again. And then the other thing I love about the desert is the expansive sky that's usually available in the desert landscapes versus in the forest or the mountains. It's a little different perspective. And so you can see so far and wide, and it's just this very beautiful feeling within that, when we're looking out to this expansive uh, skyline in nature, then I can feel it inside as well. So yeah, I
Mm,
love the desert.
I love that answer, Betsy. I will see more in the desert now after hearing that, because I feel like for the desert for me is such a place of stillness. And when I crave nature, I do not crave the desert. I crave the abundance of life in the decaying moist soil of a forest, or the big green leaves of a jungle. Um, but you're right. There is a dramatic view of that life and death. I had this one experience. I'm going to shift from desert to jungle, since that's what popped in my head. That I was in the Costa Rican jungle on a tour, and I took like 2 steps off the trail and looked down into like a foot by foot section of the ground, and was just staring at it, for an extended amount of time, and just looked at all the little bitty insects and the leaves that were fresh and the leaves that were decaying, and little things scurried through. And I was just like, wow, there's so much life in this 1 foot by 1 foot section. And then panned up and saw just miles and miles in every direction. And this, like, just that feeling of abundant life, was just so powerful, that anytime I'm kind of in my track of the world, I try to think about, like, wait, there's so much happening in nature on this micro level and macro level. I guess that's another part, like, but that we have to, in order to cope with all the input, we focus on what is ahead of us. And often, as our lenses get blurry and dirty, what's ahead of us is our calendar and our to-do list and the things that, yes, they matter, but they don't matter with a capital M. And that recognizing and using nature as a recalibrator of just how much is happening and how much, again, I guess it's similar to the thing I see in the ocean. I'm just like, oh, right. I'm small again. It's just, I need it.
Yeah.
Humbling.
Yeah. It's it's funny to what you're speaking to, John, as far as like looking into a small section of nature and see that it is just bursting with life, and knowing that this is like just a mere foot section of like miles around you. It's almost like looking at that photo from the Hubble telescope, where it's like got that focus on the interstellar sky, and every dot is like a galaxy. And it's like there's a lot going on out there. There's a lot going on down here too, for sure. That's what I get from like that tropical mindset, whether I'm in Hawaii or the jungles of Peru, like outside of, just off the Amazon, or Costa Rica, for example, or some real jungle areas I've been to. There's a lot going on there. And while the desert is that whole life and death aspect that is always present in nature is a lot more stark in the desert. I find that whenever I encounter, I'm much likelier to encounter like a carcass of a dead animal, like out in the desert, as opposed to nature, where I think that process is a lot more like, when something dies out in nature, it's like, yes, the earth and surrounding me is like, yes, come back, gimme. Whereas in the desert, that happens, but it's a much slower pace. But you're more readily, there's a lot less around in the desert, so you're more likely to see that, and be a witness to that process as well. And I think being a witness to that process helps, because we really don't see that on a day-to-day basis in our Western civilization. So it's important to get to kind of jump back into being a witness to the process of life and death, and all that kind of happens in between. Much easier to get that in nature than a drive down to get our morning coffee, for example.
So true. One of the things I really love to be able to connect with nature when I'm in my day to day, if I'm not able to go camping or not able to go on a hike, finding ways to put my feet on the earth, grounding and earthing, right? There's this little patch in my front yard that I love going to in the morning, where when there's sun, and right now it's been pretty gray here in San Diego, but when there is sun, especially, I love getting to put my feet on the earth first thing in the morning, let the sun in, just ground, connect. There's something that happens just biologically when we put our feet on the earth. So often we're like just having this separation, right, of whether that's concrete or tires or shoes or, foundations of buildings that we're in. Same thing with like hugging trees. Right? It's maybe a cliche to some people, like, oh, a little tree hugger. I used to think it was kind of that way, but now I embrace it because it really does support our nervous system. It really does support our bioenergetic field to recalibrate to nature in these simple ways. I know I personally had one spark I'll share is recently I was on a road trip, and it's been a few hours, and I started to feel a little kind of car sick, nauseous, just off. And so I was with my friend, and we were like, let's just stop for a little bit. I was like, okay, what do I need right now? Oh, I think I just need to ground. And so we found this parking lot, and I found a tree, and I just put my hands on the tree, and it really helped. It helped me to ground. It just helped me to slow down, all those just electromagnetic frequencies of the travel and the movement and all of that. It's very powerful. So yeah, when I plug into the tree, it just helped me ground. It helped me to restabilize my energy after moving so much and all those EMFs and everything. And so it's just really amazing when we take that time to plug in how grounding it can be.
There is a lot to be said. It's funny is I know that the idea of hugging a tree or like grounding, barefoot in nature sounds, can sound a little wonky to a lot of people. I think the only people it sounds wonky to are the people who have never tried it. It's one of those things that I definitely had not judgment, but just I was dismissive of that hippie perspective for quite a few years until I got to be around enough people who were like, no, I'm going to go ground today. I'm like, all right, let me try this. And it's immediate, instantaneous, like not me just building something up in my mind, like putting my hands on a tree and just feeling myself just like my adrenals just draining like into the ground and just being just it like relaxed and energized at the same time. I've had, it's experienced like just barefoot on the ground or putting my hands on a tree or hugging a tree. There's some strong benefits, and I think it's been kind of scientifically proven on some level. I'm not going to get all into that, but I'm pretty sure I've read that there's some measurable benefits from doing these things. From what one of my friends referred to as microdosing nature. So like if you can't get out, and do the thing for a while, then you can do little things during the course of your day or the course of your week to kind of ground out and kind of reset your vibe, so to speak.
That's wild. I mean, I was a not open to tree hugging until this last week. Really, I was when I was hiking. I was encouraged to get my nose deep into a Jefferson pine, and it smells like butterscotch. It's so awesome. I'm like, wow. And then a couple days later, I had a therapy session, and I was asked to tune into my subconscious about some healthy ways it's a long story, but what my subconscious of the list of things it gave me to do, one was just get my hands on trees. And I'm now a believer, science or not, testify. Yeah.
Yes, amazing. There's even research that shows how it can improve immunity, lower blood pressure. It helps us to clear trauma. Essentially, I think what's happening too is, I'm sure there's a lot of things happening, but one is it's helping us release oxytocin, right, which is a feel-good hormone. And so once we get over the judgment of ourselves being a tree hugging hippie, whoever projected that out into the pop culture, then we start to actually feel the benefits of what happens when we connect in that way. And it's just so restorative.
So, so we talked about like grounding, we were hugging trees, we got our hands on trees. Anything else that is good for like, okay, getting a nature prescription, if we're going to give ourselves a nature prescription, ideally we can go out for if only an afternoon, great, but doing the like multi-day nature break like we've all done is really like essential, at least for me, at least a handful of times a year. So but if we're not able to do that, so we got grounding, we got tree hugging, what else do we got? I feel like Betsy's probably got a whole prescription book of good things like that.
I got a few. Yeah, I'll share about something I sparked earlier was about negative ions, right? Negative ions come from when water smashes against itself, right? And it helps to eradicate free radicals in our bodies. And so you wonder why it feels good to sit by a waterfall, or why it feels good to be sitting next to a stream or the ocean, because we're getting all these negative ions, right? Oftentimes people sing in the shower because you're getting these negative ions in the shower, and it just helps us to feel really good. It helps us to be able to breathe deeper. And so just a little reminder is that going to the beach is not only about swimming or trying to get sun. It's really can be so supportive to our bodies, and in a lot of different ways. So yeah, that's one of my little vitamins is
What I think I could do a whole episode on this, but houseplants and gardening are kind of doses of nature that if you don't have access to, an actual trip into nature, um, bringing a piece of nature into your home and getting to witness it. Now, I know a lot of people are scared about that because they feel like they kill plants, and um, I would I would say if that's the case, you're probably overwatering. But just having a plant in your house that I'm surrounded by plants. I love. It does give me a little feeling of nature. I get to witness living things, cycles of things, and if you are not comfortable with gardening, I'm going to say get a bulb, like an amaryllis bulb. And if you plant a bulb and just put it in dirt, you water it the once when you get it, basically, you'll have the real instructions on it, and you will watch something rapidly have a life cycle in front of you that is so magical. My first experience with like spirituality was watching a bulb grow in my house, just being like, my God, this is amazing. So you can, and I want to mention that too about getting into nature is a real gift. If you have an opportunity to watch nature in an extended way, it's difficult if you don't live in a place, but like when I've talked to people who like live on the land, like our friend Leif has got a property, and I sat with him once and he was talking about as he's witnessed certain like vines overtake a certain tree, and or certain times a year that this kind of animal comes in here. It's kind of what you witness when you watch the show My Octopus Teacher. There's a difference between a snapshot of nature that you walk through and a cycle or cycles of nature, and it's that there's massive learning that you can do that, and you can do that in your own garden if you don't have access to live on land.
Yes, I'll actually share a little inspirational trick that I do sometimes if I need a little nature, but I can't get out into nature. So instead of turning a show on or like trying to just zone out by watching some, I don't know, some series or whatever, turning on 4K imagery of either the forest or of clouds or of waves. We have this really big, beautiful TV screen that's a really high quality monitor, and they make these incredible videos, 4K and even better, of waves. And watching waves just makes my whole system just relax and zone out. It's really amazing. I'm not getting the negative ions, but it's still doing something.
Yeah, that reminds me of I'm not going to get it right, but there's this study, like you viewing something, there's something that happens in your brain that causes a physiological response that it's not quite the full experience, but you actually do get something out of viewing
Mhm.
something, like your body's responding to it. So yeah, you're not getting the negative ions, but the other benefits that you might benefit from being out in nature, you could theoretically get just by viewing or hearing, something like that. So like hearing birds out in nature or something, I think your body does respond to that a little bit. So actually putting something on the television is not a bad idea.
Mm.
Just even if you're only like somewhat present and aware to it.
Mm.
Speaking to the gardening aspect, there's a lot of a lot of us have had an experience of having bringing a plant home and then we immediately kill it for overwatering or not watering enough. So that can be kind of depressive. But there's a whole list of plants that are like super hardy that we can get, that are good for us, that are good like for cleaning the air in our place. So get something that is hard to kill, so to speak, and try that on. And one thing that actually is somewhat, in my experience, hard to kill are herbs. To bring those on, there's added benefit that we can cook with those as well.
I've killed a lot of herbs.
As have I, but I recently brought a basil plant home about a month ago, and it's like thriving, which is and it's been like, I just added it to a meal the other day. There's something super, what's the word I'm looking for, satisfying about eating something that you've been growing or at least nurturing as well. So that's something that I've had a good experience with, like rosemary and herb and sage as well. So works for me at least.
Great. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Well, there's just so much about nature that can continue to inspire us, and we are gonna close it up with some sparks. Um, so I think I'll just actually start off with this closing spark, if you guys are okay with that.
Sure.
Please.
So one of the things that has really been fueling a lot of my inspiration to give back to nature is to donate to these organizations that are planting trees around the world. It makes me feel so good to know that there are organizations out there that are getting their hands in the dirt and planting and reforesting. And so the project that I work on, the Power Affirmation Journal and groups, we contribute to planting trees around the world. And so that is just a wonderful way to just give back and stay inspired. So that's my closing spark. How
Thanks.
about you guys?
I wanted to close with a quote that I read by John Muir about hiking, because sometimes I'm resistant to hiking, but this changed the way I looked at it. He says, hiking, I don't like either the word or the thing. People ought to saunter in the mountains, not hike. Do you know the origin of the word saunter? It's a beautiful word. Back in the Middle Ages, people used to go on pilgrimages to the Holy Land. And when the people in the villages went through them, they asked where they were going. And they would say, à la Sainte Terre, or to the Holy Land. And so they became known as Santa Terriers, or saunterers. Now these mountains are our Holy Land, and we ought to saunter through them reverently, not hike through them.
I love that. You want to go on a sauntering sometime?
Yes, let's go sauntering.
Let's go saunter. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
So, yeah, sparks for me around what we're talking about. For me, something that gets me outside on a regular basis, living in the city, is I've got a bunch of hummingbird feeders around. And so I'm feeding these hummingbirds just straight up, sugar and water concoction. But it's almost like there's like families of hummingbirds like around me. They recognize me when I come out. They kind of remind me when the feeder needs to be refilled. They'll come up and just chirp like right in my face and like zip up and go to the empty feeder. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, all right, I'll be right back. And that it feels like a connection to nature with me, even though I'm like, right deep in the heart of living in the city. I'm still getting this like nature. I have this connection with nature that is being like nurtured and fostered. Like, these animals are not my pets, but they're part of the world around me. And therefore I'm connected to them, which connects me to the world around me as well. So that's one thing. Find a way to, you're not feeding the birds, tending to something outside of your home. Whether that's gardening, bird feeding, squirrel feeding. I've done that before in places, and that allows me to foster that connection to nature. And so it's something that I find definitely worth doing. So yeah. So thank you, you guys, for another enlightening show.
Yeah,
So
where can we find you in the world,
Yes,
Betsy?
absolutely.
My offering to the world, as I mentioned before, is my nutritional supplement company called New World Nutritionals. We have a bunch of mushroom-based products, microdose products as well, that are designed to improve your focus, your clarity, your learning, helps improve and alleviate symptoms of ADHD, OCD, PTSD, all sorts of like neurological like stuff that we are dealing with, and but getting really good results with pretty much everybody who's like getting it. Like our reviews are great, and it's a product that I'm happy to be offering. So again, the company is New World Nutritionals, spelled NU World Nutritionals. You can use the code SPARKED for the website to get 10% off of all of our products.
So you're saying you can take nature and actually ingest it? Amazing.
Pretty much nature in a pill.
Nature in a pill. Love it.
Nature in a pill.
You can find my sharings and streamings and offerings at johnstin.com, JOHNSTYN.com.
Amazing. And I love helping people people to connect to their nature of who they are through mind, body, spirit practices, massage therapy, energy work, intuitive coaching. I love doing in-person retreats, and really just getting, people set up in a way that helps them to connect to their authentic joy and happiness. So you can find me on my website, poweraffirmation.com, where you can learn more about the journal and about the audio affirmations that I put out in the world. And of course, you can follow me on all the socials, Betsy Who, and all the places. So feel free to reach out. Love staying connected and expanding our beautiful community. So thanks for listening, you guys. So
Speaking of
grateful. And
affirmations,
in the spirit of, yes, in the spirit of our Stay Sparked closing, you guys ready for our affirmation?
please.
Yes, please.
All right. So we're going to use an affirmation for nature. So if you like, you can close your eyes and just take a nice deep breath. And internally or out loud, I am nature. I am nature. I am nature. I allow nature to nurture me. I allow nature to nurture me. I allow nature to nurture me. I am connected to all that is. I am connected to all that is. I am connected to all that is. And so it is. Stay sparked out there, people. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, people. Stay sparked.